Thank you very much to the audience, and thanks for staying back. We've had a long day, but very interesting, enlightening, and educating. Now we have the keynote address as the next item on the agenda. The keynote address to be delivered by a distinguished professor would be addressing the topic, The Future of Tax Practice Game Changers, which doubles as our theme for the event. This shall be moderated by Morenike Omotayo Ojo. She is a legal practitioner and senior associate at Professor A.B. Kashemu's Chambers Legal Practitioners with a keen interest in alternative dispute resolution, particularly mediation. Morenike is a certified ODR practitioner, a certified mediator with a Lagos Multi-Door Court House, a mediation advocate, an associate member, and a certified arbitral secretary of the Chartered Institute of Arbitration, Nigeria branch, and a member of the panel of neutrals of the LCA, CIRB, ADR, MSME scheme. She is also a chartered secretary and administrator with the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, and also a member of the International Bar Association. Morenike Ojo, kindly take us through the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Timileyin. I've been saddled with the responsibility of reading the profile of our keynote speaker, our second keynote speaker to be precise. So Judith Freedman is Vincent Mason's Professor of Taxation Law and Policy at the University of Oxford. From 2001 to 2019, she was the inaugural statutory professor of taxation law at Oxford University Law Faculty and one of the founders of the Oxford University Center for Business Taxation. She has written extensively on various topics, including small business taxation, tax avoidance, and tax policy making. She was a member of the Aronson General Anti-Avoidance Rule Study Group and has served in many other policy committees. In 2020, she was appointed to the board of the UK Office of Tax Simplification. She is a member of the Council of the UK Institute for Fiscal Studies, IFS, and chair of the IFS Tax Law Review Committee. Judith is general editor of British Tax Review, as well as being on the editorial boards of several other journals. Professor Freedman has been appointed as a CBE for her services to tax research and as an honorary fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation. She was elected a fellow of the British Academy in 2016. With highest regard, I welcome Professor Judith Freedman as she presents a keynote speech.
Thank you very much, Morenike, and thank you so much for inviting me to speak to you today. I've been listening to the session that went before me, and it's all very interesting and great to bring people together from around the world to talk to you. I have no idea who's out there or how many of you there are or whether anybody's listening at all, but I shall keep talking. I'm also not sure how long I'm meant to be going on for, but I shall just keep talking and somebody will stop me if they want me to stop, I'm sure. So I'll probably go on for about 20 minutes. Oh, I'm being told 20 minutes, that's fine. And I would also welcome any questions in the comments box. I would love to have some questions at the end if there is time. Because I'm not an expert on Nigeria, of course, and I'm not really an expert on blockchain. I'm certainly not an expert on blockchain or any of those things. So why am I here? Why are you listening to me? We're supposed to be talking about the future of tax practice. Perhaps I represent the past of tax practice. What can I tell you? You are all bright young people. You are the future. I am not the future. I'm enormously excited about the future because there are so many amazing, bright young people out there. And I have the privilege to teach people on the tax MSc in Oxford. And I know how many really bright people there are. Far more capable than we were in the past, thinking much more and more reflective about many issues like the climate change and so on than we ever did in the past. So I'm aware that there are limits to how much I have to teach you, but I'm going to tell you some stories from the past, which I think might reflect on how you should think about things in the future. When I arrived in Oxford 20 years ago, I was appointed as a professor, and I arrived thinking, well, there are so many bright young women here already. There's nothing I can teach them. I don't have to do anything for women in Oxford. They're doing it already. And it was remarkable to notice that they wanted me to do something. The women wanted me to say something on their behalf. And the reason they wanted me to do that was because they still felt that things were not right, that they were a group that were not being treated equally with the men. And so we set up Oxford Women in Law, and we started to work on that. So, as I say, although I feel that you are all doing really well and better than I am, in some ways, I do know that women still feel the need for women's groups, support, and so on. But I'm not only going to speak about women today, I'm going to speak about a number of things we can learn from the past and look to the future for. I think the first thing to say is that you cannot comprehend what things are going to be like in the future, just as we could not comprehend what things were going to be like in the future when I was in practice in the late 70s and the 80s. When I started out, we had no word processors. We didn't have computers on our desks. We didn't even have word processors. Everything I did went to a typing pool overnight to be typed, ready for the next day. There were no other women in my department for most of the time that I was there at a big city firm in London. There were obviously no maternity leave provisions because women didn't go off and have children. There weren't any women, and if they did have children, they didn't come back. And as for tax, well, there was a lot of artificial avoidance going on. There were a lot of schemes. It was before the Ramsey case was decided, if you can think back that long, and that's hard. Tax was very different too. What has changed? Well, we do have computers and we do have statutory maternity leave provisions. I don't know what they are in Nigeria, but we certainly do in the UK. We have a lot more anti-avoidance provisions. We have general anti-avoidance rules. We have lots of specific anti-avoidance provisions. And we are much more aware of the reputational risk of being involved in tax avoidance. But what has really changed is the culture and the views and the beliefs. And that's what I think is hopeful and what is encouraging and what we have to encourage further and work on further. So, first of all, the new technology. Yes, new technology will help us in many ways. It will remove a lot of boring and reiterative work. It allows us to focus on what's really important. But as with my typing pool, it removes time to think as well, because when I sent a takeover agreement to the typing pool to be typed overnight, that gave me thinking space. And if I had changed my mind in the middle of the night and then the next morning thought this shouldn't go off, we could revise it. We could look at it again. Now I press a button and off it goes. And I think that has removed thinking space. And one thing we need to be careful with new technology is that we do not remove the human element. We do not remove thinking space. We've got examples. There was an example in the Netherlands recently, for example, when everything was automated and notices were going off to benefits recipients that they were going to be prosecuted, and there had been no human intervention, and this caused enormous trouble and almost brought the Dutch government down. So we do have to be very careful with technology, that we continue to have a human element in that technology, and we use it to make thinking time, not to remove thinking time. I said that I wasn't going to talk about blockchain. I am not a blockchain expert, but yeah, great. If blockchain makes transactions more secure, more transparent, less open to fraud, that must be a good thing. But don't expect it to solve fundamental tax problems. As the PwC report on blockchain says, rubbish in, rubbish out. If you haven't got a good tax system, you are simply not going to be able to use blockchain to help you. So it will help if you have a good system. It will not help you otherwise. And that's true, I think, of all technology. So that's my first lesson. Technology can be helpful, but it can also remove time to think and remove the human element. And it's important that we don't let it do that. So the next thing I want to talk about is women. Women in tax. Yes, you probably have rules to protect you, laws to protect you that were not available when I was in practice. But as I said, it's people and it's the changing culture that matters. And one thing that I would say is that rejoice in the fact that there are more women, more and more women in tax firms, and that you can work together to change things. Because when I was in my tax firm, there were no other women. And that was hard. And if you're a senior woman, help junior women. There's a massive temptation for people like me and senior women to say, I got there the hard way. Nobody helped me. So why should I make it any easier for these young people? They have it easier than I had it already. But I know that young women do not feel that way. They do not feel life is easy. So much is expected. You are expected to do your work. You're expected to be a wonderful mother. You're expected to be a wonderful cook. Something has to give. Don't try to do everything. And also look to each other for support, and support each other. But men must also help women. Women can't do this alone, and they must help women not only in the workplace, but at home. So it is really important to make sure that the people you're working with help you and support you, and also the people at home, informally and formally. Until men take paternity leave as often as women take maternity leave, I don't think we're going to be precisely equal. The other thing I would say is remember that equality must spread across all staff. We often hear about more senior staff. We hear about the lawyers and the accountants who are women and how hard it is for them. But think about how hard it is for many support staff who don't even earn as much as the accountants and the lawyers, and who are being expected to support others. And make sure that any equality procedures trickle down and extend to the entire firm, because then those support staff will also support the policies and will support the women and the men who they are there to work with. And I think everything I'm saying about women applies to all groups, all minority groups. Women are not a minority group, but you know what I mean. All groups who are in any way othered, we must all support each other. Diversity means the avoidance of groupthink. Diversity has to be a good thing. And so my big message is think for yourself, work with each other, but don't create some kind of groupthink. Fight against the groupthink. And I'm going to end by talking about tax, and the importance of giving yourself time to think about tax. Our modern tax systems are more and more complex, and we often, although we're trying so hard to make them fairer, simply make them more complex. And it's hard to see whether we're making them fairer or not. Sometimes we seem to make them less fair. Sometimes we seem to try to remove avoidance opportunities, and we create other avoidance opportunities. What can we do about that as individuals? I don't think we should just sit back and accept the tax system that we have. Get involved. Join groups, join committees that comment on tax law. Make sure that your country has input into the international debates. Make sure that your firm has input into the national debates. Make sure that you individually have input into the debates that are going on about tax around you. Make sure you understand the system and not just a few details that you're having to apply. Join International Fiscal Association. Join WIN, the Women's Group of International Fiscal Association. Join groups like this. You're already all there because you have joined this group and you're listening. Yes, the removal of tedious work may save us time, but use that time to have time to think about injustices and abuse and compliance and the importance of compliance. And when you're advising your clients, think about their long-term interests, think about them in the round. They will thank you if you think about their interests, not just in terms of tax minimization tomorrow, but in terms of their relationship with the tax authority, how they will be perceived externally, their reputations. Make sure that you can talk to them about those things and not just the technical details. Although, of course, you do also need to know the technical details. But they will thank you for having a broader view of your tax system. And for that purpose, I would strongly advise you to have as much tax education as you possibly can. I would say this because I am an educator, but there are wonderful tax master's degrees across the world. Some of them are available remotely. Some of them you have to attend. Obviously, I'm going to give a push here for the Oxford Tax MSc, which I teach on, which I helped to set up, and which one of your speakers in the panel that follows this, Lucky Star, is going to did attend and will no doubt comment on. But whatever opportunities offer themselves to you, then take them to study tax further, to understand tax better. That will not only help you, but it will also help your firms, and it will help your countries, and it will help your clients. And unless we all try hard to improve our tax systems, which in most countries in the world are really not very good, we are not going to make any progress. That is why I have joined the board of the Office of Tax Simplification, which is a very strange title, but it's working to try to improve tax. It's why I'm on the Tax Law Review Committee of the Institute for Fiscal Studies. It is very hard to make a difference, even when you're on these august sounding bodies. They don't give you that many opportunities to really make a difference. It's hard, but I think we all have to just keep chipping away and trying to improve things. So to sum up, I talked about four things really, or three things. I talked about new technology and the way that we make it our servant and don't become the servants of that new technology. I talked about women and other groups. It is not just women, but other groups who need support, who can support each other, who can get support from others within their firms. All of this will strengthen the firms and will strengthen the groups as well, and how we have to help each other in this endeavor. And I talked about tax and how tax is changing. Reputational risk is really much more important. Seeing tax in the round is much more important. We've heard already in this conference about the importance of voluntary compliance. No tax system can work without voluntary compliance. Tax administrations need to foster that. Taxpayers need to understand it and work together. And the way to promote that is to have more and more tax discussions and more and more debates, and to feed into those debates as much as we all possibly can. So I would really welcome some questions if there's any time, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Professor Judith, for the well-delivered speech. You know, it's really encouraging to know that you've been in this practice for so long a time, particularly in those times when women were not so into this field, the tax field. It's quite an encouragement to know that we can also do it, and that, you know, I really, the part that stood out for me is the fact that, you know, we should support ourselves as women, and considering the fact that more women are coming into it now, the support is very needed. Thank you so much for your time. It's so wonderful having you in this conference. Thank you so much. We look forward to learning so much from you. You know, another part that even struck me was you were part of those that actually participated in setting up the master's program in Oxford University. That's a big feat, and I'm really, really grateful that a woman is actually taking the lead, you know, in that field. Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.